Broadcasting across California, California's only statewide political show. You're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson on another historic week in politics. The country watched as Joe Biden marked his 100th day in office with an address to the nation. Here in California, Elex Padilla marked his 100th day as California's junior senator. Back on his first day in office, we were the first show to interview him. It was a cold day in Washington, D.C. back then. Much better weather now. Now to mark his 100th day, Senator Padilla is back with us.
Good to be back. Time is flying. Can't believe it's been 100 days, but a lot's happened. A lot of good's made. A lot of progress being made.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. 100 days in, what is it like being a senator? How is it different from what you thought?
Well, besides the proverbial drinking from a fire hose, look, as tough as some of the challenges are, I'll tell you, just one of the biggest highlights was the passage of the American Rescue Plan. Right? One of the most historic acts of Congress since the New Deal. Just as important as it was to respond to COVID, it's a reminder of the power of government to do good when the political will is there and when the thoughtfulness goes into the work product.
Well, and let's talk about that, because this week there was the big address to Congress. You were there. There was a selfie of you watching with Dr. Jill Biden in the audience. He's pitching a whole lot of spending. You mentioned the American Rescue Plan. You already passed that. That was over $1.9 trillion in spending. Now, the president wants to pass an infrastructure plan. That's called the American Jobs Plan. That's $2.3 trillion. Then there's also the American Families Plan. That's $1.8 trillion. That's largely focused on social services. So the question, Senator, is, so what do you say to critics who say $6 trillion in spending, way too much money? Government itself isn't all that good at spending money efficiently and wisely.
So, well, look, I want to talk about what is in the package and what we should be investing in, and also how to pay for it. I'm not shy about that conversation, but let's put it in a historical context here. When we were coming out of the Great Depression, did we let the concern about how we're going to pay for it keep us from investing in our nation's infrastructure back in the 30s, part of the New Deal? No, it's viewed through history as a big reason we rebounded as a country. Look at California specifically under Governor Pat Brown. Did we let the concern about how we're going to pay for it keep us from investing in, our transportation infrastructure, from our university system, and so much more? No, it's those investments strategic that led to our success and prosperity. And that's the thinking that we're doing here. We're coming out of not just a COVID-19 health pandemic, but an economic pandemic as well. And through smart investments, not just in roads and bridges, in broadband, in healthcare, in housing, and from the American Families Plan, in, yes, childcare, educational opportunity, all those sorts of things, we can set the stage for America's working families to thrive and lock in our competitiveness for decades.
So and the way to pay for it would be to raise taxes on those making over $400,000, also raise taxes on some businesses as well. So your basic point would be, it's worth it.
Look, I think it's going to be a combination. The most wealthy families in America and large corporations should be paying their fair share. Some are paying too little, some aren't paying anything at all. So that can underwrite a big part of the investment that we know is needed and will get a big, big return on. Could there be a little bit more deficit spending? That might be part of it at the end of the day. Interest rates are still low. So, in investments in good terms for the federal government, it's still a pretty good time. But one area that's not being talked about nearly enough, which I think we should, is leveraging our dollars. I've been in public service for more than 20 years now. Most large-scale infrastructure projects have federal funding and state funding or local funding, or maybe all three. We can stretch those dollars through leverage, and there's clearly opportunities for leveraging private investment with some public investment as well. So different ways to meet the cost, but let's not be shy. We know that significant strategic investments will reap benefits for years to come.
Now, this is possible that you could pass this along what's called reconciliation, which means you can do it with only Democratic support. You can't do that for a lot of the other big Democratic wish list items. I know you're a big proponent of getting rid of the filibuster. You talk about that all the time. But you got to convince some of your Democratic colleagues to do that. Where are you at on that? What does the future of the filibuster look like? And are you talking to some of your colleagues that are skeptical about that?
Yeah, look, on the filibuster, I think the trend continues. More and more of my colleagues, the hardest to convince or change their mind are coming around because they see the reluctance of our Republican colleagues to play ball. Right, we were talking about the American Rescue Plan a few minutes ago. To think that urgent, resources for families, for small businesses, for state and local governments across the country had to be done on a partisan basis because Republicans couldn't even bring themselves to do that. Now the ball's back in their court. Will they play ball with us on the investments in housing, in healthcare, in roads and bridges, in broadband deployment, or so much more? Or is it just all talk that they want to work on a bipartisan basis? Because the need is urgent. If they're ready to work, so are we. If they're not, then we have a way to act with the urgency that the situation calls for.
All right, real quickly before you go, we want to have a bit of fun as well. We play a game on this show called the Name Game. You've played this before, where we do one word to describe certain people. And now that you've been in the Senate, you've gotten to know some of these people a little better. One word that you think of when they come up. So here we go. Ready?
Don't get me in trouble now.
Okay, Senator Chuck Schumer.
Happy.
Senator Mitch McConnell.
Curmudgeon.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
Donuts.
Senator Lindsey Graham.
Which one?
Senator Cory Booker.
Pal.
Senator Ted Cruz.
Please.
And finally, the senior senator from California, Dianne Feinstein.
Gracious.
So Bernie Sanders serve donuts? Is that a thing?
So of all the committees that I sit on, budget committee is the only one that has donuts and coffee in the back. So I thank Bernie Sanders.
I love to feed people as well. And last question, we've talked about your family before. How is your family adjusting to you being in D.C.? How do you make that work? How are you guys doing with this new life?
Well, I appreciate you asking. God bless my wife. Her love and support allows me to do what I do. We haven't quite found the rhythm or the groove yet, but that'll come. Boys are back in school in person. And so that's been a big change for the better as we're beginning to come out of this pandemic. We'll see. The job keeps me busy. It comes with some personal sacrifice, obviously, but we know that it's going to be worth it at the end of the day.
All right, Senator Elex Padilla, we know how busy you are, and we really appreciate you making time for us.
All right. Thank you. Stay safe, everybody.